Now, the highlight of this year's APEC will be the Gyeongju Declaration, and that's only if the APEC member leaders decide to settle on like-minded goals and plans going forward. Will APEC 2025 Korea realize the Gyeongju Declaration? For answers, we've invited Professor Andrew Millard. Welcome back.
Thank you. Great to be here again.
And also joining on my left is Professor Soo-young. Welcome, Professor Song.
Thank you for inviting me.
So, Professor Song, how does the adoption of a declaration work, in this case for APEC?
I think the declaration is maybe some people believe to put some weight, importance to the declaration, but so far, because of the United States and the conflict with China, consequently, the declaration itself is not as important as what it used to be. For example, in 2024 Machu Picchu Declaration, with the help with the Joe Biden's previous U.S. president's attendance, makes some punctuation and put more importance to the declaration. But not now. But still, I believe that as long as the member states can come together and they have some unified or some agreed upon the opinions about the meaning of APEC 2025, I think it has some important implication for the further future global trade.
Like you mentioned, so many things have changed for the past few years
Right.
in terms of international ties and relations. And then, Professor Millard, why are we obsessing so much over this Gyeongju Declaration?
So the declaration, it's a very symbolic document. So every summit, every bilateral meeting, they always end the summit with either a declaration or at least an official statement. So what these declarations, what these statements do, basically they just summarize what has been discussed by the members over the past 2 days and what agreements they've come up with, how they're going to resolve some of the issues that have been discussed. So basically, it's a kind of a guideline for the future where they've shown commitment to cooperate together. Now, for APEC, since its initiation in 1989, it's only been 2 times that there's been no declaration. 2018 was the first when we had issues between China and the US.
Right.
And the second time was 2019, which was due to Chile having to cancel the APEC meeting due to civil unrest. So it's a very important document, but as Professor Song said, maybe it's also quite just a symbol. There's no real meaning behind it.
Well, they have to come up with at least a penciled down document, right, to end such a big event.
Exactly.
And then, Professor Song, why do you think the leaders are taking so much time to come to the middle ground? What are they struggling with?
Actually, even though we have the APEC 2025 main theme is building sustainable tomorrow, and also bridge and build business and beyond, maybe considering those themes, and then the prospect of world economy. So, for example, under the WTO, is based upon the rules-based multilateral trade principle, but it has been actually just broken because of the conflict between U.S. and China, particularly as Professor Millard mentioned, that 2018 and 19, the 2 times no declaration was agreed upon the member states. So it signals, it is very symbolic, but the declaration is that some kind of the already made some agreement among the member states and the participating countries. So as a result, they would like to get some agreeable issues and for the guideline for the future. So I think current situation is going to be, it is abbreviated as a terminology of plurilateralism, which means some regions get together and foster some free trade among the regional unit. So that is like some kind of monopolistic competition and independent of each other. So this is a kind of a fractional economy is going to take the shape of the future trade. Therefore, Still, we need cooperation, coordination is important, but because of the two superpowers, conflict is inevitable, I think, because even though current situation is just a truce. So to that regard, I expect the development of the world international trade is going to be a little bit divided into several chunks of the some free trade area.
Well, good news is that we're just into day one of the two-day APEC leaders meeting. Hopefully we'll be able to see the declaration come out tomorrow. But if we do, Professor Millard, what will the declaration really entail, Gyeongju Declaration?
So there's going to involve several different issues.
Okay.
It's going to be the main issues facing the region right now. Of course, the main one is trade. So we all know the tariffs have been going up. It's going on for a long time. And as Professor Song said, we want to go back, especially the other countries. China, President Lee in Korea has repeatedly mentioned this push for multilateralism,
Right.
back to the rules-based trade system. So we're going to see a focus on that. We're also going to see a lot of focus on the digital economy, which again is something that President Lee has been focusing on, pushing the AI agenda, how that will be involved in the economic system as we move forward. Sustainability and inclusivity, this covers quite a few areas. So a big topic right now is obviously climate change, bringing in a lot of renewable energies, green energy. The problem with that right now is that it's very costly. So they'll want to push ahead with bringing in stable energy, green energy, but also at affordable prices, which again requires a lot of economic cooperation between the members. And we also have women's empowerment, so we have demographic changes that will be part of the issue. And the final one, I think, will be supply chain management, resilience. We've seen COVID-19, various financial crises that have really hindered the supply chain. So I think those are the main issues that will be in the declaration.
You know, the world is burdened with so much work and challenges. Now, you mentioned cooperation on AI, energy, demographic shifts, but Professor Song, what do you think needs to be absolutely included in this Gyeongju Declaration, if you have to pick one?
If I would like to focus on very short term, because Professor Millard has mentioned several agendas, very important and critical, but not imminent. So the reason is it is like environment and other women empowerment and other several issues are a little bit long term. So to that regard, I would like to say, because every country, even China and South Korea, always have some bilateral trade. Even Southeast Asian countries, Malaysia, Vietnam, for example, Malaysia is a 19% tariff. Vietnam is 20%. So there is some differentiation still exists, which means that each country has a different trade agreement between each country and the US. So this is clearly the bilateral, a separate way of doing international trade. Then the remaining countries and the remaining countries must have their own way to foster some free trade. That's what I said, the plurilateralism is the multilateral. It cannot be sustained because the US absolutely rejected. Given that China cannot, but India, Brazil cannot but choose not multilateralism, but they have their own way to foster international free trade.
Professor, you've raised a very interesting point because U.S. President Donald Trump is not here anymore. He's already back at home. But wouldn't that make the Gyeongju Declaration not a complete one, I'm afraid to say?
So I think there's been a lot of attention put on Donald Trump coming to Korea.
Especially this APEC.
What we need to focus on is America being president, not just Donald Trump.
Okay.
So we could also say that Vladimir Putin, he's not here representing Russia.
That's true.
So that would be another example. So it doesn't really matter that Donald Trump himself is not here in terms of the declaration. So based on the APEC rules, if the leader is not here, it then goes down to the vice president, or if not the vice president, then down to the Treasury Secretary. So for America, this means that Scott Bessent should be here to sign any declaration on behalf of the US president. What it does mean, maybe it's a little bit of a negative image for Donald Trump that he hasn't stayed for the whole APEC summit. So I know in Asia that's quite important that you do stay and you do participate. So it could be an image wise there. But I mean, there's advantages and disadvantages. The advantages, basically this is an opportunity for the other members of APEC in the region, like we said, who want to focus on multilateralism, want to have this free trade, rules-based system. Without Donald Trump sort of overshadowing them, maybe this is an opportunity for them to come back. But of course, disadvantage, maybe if Donald Trump was here, he could have put more pressure on the members against Russia, and this could have helped in ending the Ukraine war. So there's sort of give and takes. But like I said, whether he's here or not, definitely the declaration can still go ahead.
Okay, well, that's a good news for now. But I do have to ask you, Professor Song, do you think the summit between U.S. President Donald Trump and Chinese leader Xi Jinping played any role in, in achieving or pursuing common goals that would lead to the declaration and Gyeongju Declaration specifically?
Definitely, I don't think so, because this is just a truce. There are three different levels of some stoppage pause, the temporary pause of the conflict between two belligerent or counterparts is like a truce and the ceasefire and armistice. Now, between North and South Korea, we have armistice. Ceasefire is a little less formal, but truce is really temporary. The reason why Xi Jinping and Trump has agreed each other to have this kind of truce and reprieve for 1 year, the reason is because otherwise Trump would lose some kind of the midterm election next year, and also he is quite afraid of some blocking of the soybean export to China. Then actually Argentina has taken advantage of the situation, and also China is now they have some problem is investment-led economic growth is actually blocked. So they would like to emphasize the consumption-led economic growth. To that regard, then they would like to stabilize the situation. So that's why they end up with a truce. And then even the fentanyl, some kind of medicine-related, the fentanyl is allowed to be imported to the United States. In return, for example, China has allowed the U.S. to transfer or take the ownership of TikTok video company, video player company. So to that regard, there is some kind of some give and back, given each other, and they agree under the water, and so it's ongoing. But they would like to take advantage of this situation to reduce the capability of their rivals' leverage, which means Trump will make efforts to purchase and to guarantee the available rare earth material from Southeast Asia countries. That's why he had paid a visit to Southeast Asia. So, and Australia is going to be a good resource to rare earth material. Then on the other hand, then China they would make friends, and they would like to expand their own way, some free trade promotion among the countries, and then to lead the Chinese economic growth with the consumption within the domestic and also some other countries other than U.S. So
definitely. Well, Professor Millard, I'd like to end with you with this one last question. This APEC 2025 Korea is one of many APEC events that we will have, in the near future, and also for our future generations. How do you expect the role of APEC to change in the future?
I don't see it changing substantially.
Okay.
So APEC's role is to focus on economic cooperation. So maybe there'll be a bit of a shift away from the traditional sort of tariffs, non-tariff barriers, quotas. And like we said earlier, we're moving into this period now where AI, the digital economy, is becoming much more prominent. So I think sort of the keywords in the future for APEC will be digital economy, sustainability, and inclusivity. I think those will be sort of the key areas going forward.
All right, Professor Millard, thank you so much for joining us again tonight. We
My
appreciate
pleasure.
it.
Thank you very much.
And as always, Professor Song, thank you so much for your insight and your time. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, it's my pleasure, and thank you for inviting me.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah.